I grew up in a big family. 5 siblings jumping around, making fun of each other, and making the stupidest thing being funny. I remember those days when I felt connected. I remember being very close to one of my sisters. We spend nights talking, laughing in our rooms because we shared the same room. And I remember my mom shouting, "Girls, go to bed, you have to go to school tomorrow." I remember us having homework times, and it would always turn into discussion and laughing times. It was never a good idea to study together. I remember those days when my mom would come home from work and we were so excited to see her, and we would just jump on her and feel her warmness. I remember those days where I felt like I belonged to somewhere. I belonged to my family. And then as time went by, there were a lot of experiences that started happening in my life and that was about to change me forever. It started with mocking laughs in the street. I remember those group of guys laughing when I was walking with my sister. We were going to the market. And we kept working as nothing was happening. And then there was this one guy staring at me with his funny, his mocking smile on his face, and shouted, "Me cat." I mean, for you it means nothing. It's just a word. But think about this one word that you would hate people to call you by. It could be the B word or the N word or a word that defines your culture or your religion. That's how I felt like. Again, I didn't know the meaning of that word, but I felt like by his look, it wasn't hi or how are you. And again, I kept working as if nothing happened because this guy didn't know me, so whatever he thinks, I don't care. But then, I also remember my first day in high school. Because, we start high school at like about 11, because we have like 7 years in high school in my country. And I remember my first day, I was really excited to start school, and I was really excited to meet people and get connected. And the first time I entered the room and I sat at this spot that I chose, there was this one girl next to me, and she stood up and looked at me with this disgusted look and said, and just went away with her stuff. You know how I felt like? I was cold. I felt so alone in the midst of this crowd. I felt cold not because of the weather, but because there was too much space around me. And that was not the only time I felt like that. There were many times. Many times. I also remember, a day I was talking with a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, and we were talking about our friendships and how we are close to each other and why we're friends and all that. And then he started to look at me and smiled. I didn't know what was happening, so I smiled back. And he took my hand and told me, "Patricia, I love you the way you are, and I don't care no matter what people think about you. I love you the way you are, and you're my friend." And I felt really warm. And then I was like, why would you tell me that you don't care what the world thinks about me? I mean, what do the world think about me? And I was really, confused. And he started telling me that yesterday, the day before our talk, he was with friends and they were talking about me. They were talking about my friendship with him, and that they didn't get it, like why he wouldn't work with me and stuff like that. And as he was talking, I kept this funny fake smile on my face, but I was shivering inside. And as soon as we finished school that day, I ran home, threw my backpack on the stairs, and even didn't get to enter the house, and just sat down and felt the pain. I felt the pain of being born the way I am. I felt the pain of being me. This was the very first time I started asking myself what was going on. I remember my mom coming back from work that night. I didn't run to her as usual. I was just sitting there and I stared at her. She looked at me and approached me. And with the sweetest voice, she asked me, "What's wrong, my love?" And I just felt like it was time for me to, just throw out things. And I told her all these discrimination things I was going through and how I felt like. And I tried to ask her, what is wrong with me? I mean, Mom, tell me. And then I felt how hard it was for her to, tell me the truth. And then she just let it go and told me that I had albinism. I was born as an albino and I had a lack of melanin, so that's why I am not, black like all my schoolmates and friends and family and everybody I work with every day. At that time, I was trying to just swallow it. I mean, here am I in Cameroon, a country in Central Africa with 99% of its population being black, and here am I in a high school of 2,000 students, being one out of like maximum 3 students being albino. And across Africa, this happens to a lot of kids. Some are sacrificed for ritual because people think they bring wealth. Some other things they are a curse, or they should not be approached by the society. I started asking myself questions. Why did this happen to me? I mean, that could have happened to 1,000 other people, but it happened to me. Why? And at that point of my life shifted from being this peaceful childhood, full of love and joy and simplicity, to a life full of questions without answers. I started to make myself small. I started to avoid people, not go to, soccer as I used to before. I started to not go for opportunities because albino are supposed to be weak and they cannot do a lot of things because of the restrictions concerning food or sun exposure or anything like that. But then, later on, I heard about this wonderful opportunity of the YES program that brings students to the US for 1 year and have this exchange experience. So I decided to apply because I thought maybe going there where people don't know that background information, they will make me take time to know me as I am and not as they think I am. So I went there, I spent this wonderful year, and I met people from like different countries, different backgrounds, and yet able to connect and feel the love among them. I was in a place where difference was not a problem. And back home, I realized that this kind of place existed, and I wanted to bring it to my country. I wanted people to know that. So later on, I started this project on albinism, a project that could reunite people and try to make them build bridges of understandings among them. So I did it. I invited people, like about 60 people came actually, whether they were albino or black or whatever. So I was there with some alumni from Cameroon, and we were supposed to give messages. We were supposed to give messages in a row. But as soon as the first alumni finished her talk actually, and I wanted to introduce the next alumni, and I was standing there, and I saw a hand being raised in the very back of the room. She wanted to say something. And we were all like, what does she want to say? I mean, we already have this set up. We already know what we're going to do. And then we were just like, okay, we're just going to let her talk a little bit. And then she stood up, came to talk. She came to share her experience as an albino. She came to share the most painful things in her life. The one thing I remember was when she was telling the story of when she had her first job interview. She pictured when she entered the room of the interview, and this was this guy looking at her with this disgusted look and saying, probably in his mind, how did she even make it here? Who let that happen? And as she was talking, I could feel the relation between her story and mine. This girl has just used her burden of being an albino to inspire people. Whether it was this guy probably thinking and usually probably insulting albino in the street, maybe it was a time for him to realize how hard it was for the albino people. Or whether it was a time for me to learn that the hardest things in our life are the things that improve us the most. Suddenly, I had the answers to all my questions, to all the questions I've been asking myself. Maybe I was born as an albino to understand how it feels like and fight for those who are like me, feeling different, feeling alone. So I realized that I am the master of my life. I'm the one who chooses to be happy. So I choose to be happy. I choose to be strong. I choose to fight. Because I want those choices to help me transform my burden of being an albino to a beautiful inspiration for others. What about you? We all have burdens. We all have this one thing that we hate people to point out about us. We all have this thing that we will never tell to people. But what if we could embrace this burden and transform it into a beautiful thing? There's so many burdens out there, right? That means so many ways to improve the world. Wouldn't the world be so beautiful? Thank you.